Welcome back. You're still watching Citizen TV. This is the news review on Power Breakfast with me, Fred Indimuli. I'm still in studio with Kimani Wamatangi, Senator, Kiambu County, Rose Wanjala, lawyer, member of the Law Society, and Jared Okello, MP, Nyando constituency. I'm looking at the headlines on page 6 of the Standard. There are 3 headlines that I would want us to discuss. The JSC pair in a spot over graft claims. That's as far as vetting of nominees to the Judicial Service Commission is concerned. The other one is former CS's fight tag of sacked in jobs vetting. We're talking about the nominee for permanent representative to the United Nations, Cleopa Mailu, the nominee for ambassador to France, Judy Wahungu, nominee for ambassador to Belgium, Phyllis Kandie, and nominee for High Commissioner to Tanzania, Dan Kazungu, who are all former CSs. Then the other one is Wiper PSC bid rocks coalition, and that's the biggest discussion. The entire of last week we were entertained to the kind of drama, especially within NASA, on the list of nominees to that very important, very vital commission that actually handles the benefits for all members of parliament. And this is one point where all members need to agree on, and it's across the political divide, both majority and minority. Let's start from there, as I had indicated earlier. The PSC and how important it is, the Parliamentary Service Commission, and why it is important for members to actually elect people or individuals who will actually work for them, and not wait for either Jubilee as a party or NASA as a coalition to determine who should be on that committee. Senator, you've been in Parliament for quite a while now. You know how important the Parliamentary Service Commission is. We're getting news of how Jubilee intends to actually shoot down the nomination of 1 or 2 people as proposed by NASA. We saw them, we saw Speaker Justin Muturi, who's admittedly a Jubilee member, admit that letter from Wiper, despite NASA as a coalition, the minority side saying no, we want this new list. Don't you think that kind of meddling from the parties, whether Jubilee or NASA, will actually affect the benefits of members of parliament? That this is a one point that should be left to parliamentarians to decide exactly who they want the members of the Parliamentary Service Commission to be?
Well, Fred, exactly what you're saying is precisely what's happening. If you compare the processes of electing or nominating members to various either committees or in the PSC, there's a marked difference. The difference being when you're electing members into parliamentary committees, names are proposed, sometimes from the party, others sometimes from members, according to how or which committees one wants to serve in. And then that process is normally left to the committee itself to sit down amongst its 9 members to decide who will be chairman, who will be vice chairman, and so on. But then when you come to the Parliamentary Service Commission, this is a commission that is mandated to address all issues concerning the welfare of parliament and parliamentarians. And that is why that process is left to the entire of parliamentarians across the divide to vote for whom they want. All to vote, not some to vote. And hence the process of proposing names, that this particular party will propose these names and so on. And we as Jubilee, as you already know, we have our nominees in already, the names are with the Speaker. We have no issue. We have agreed upon all our nominees. And so the matter that's kept this matter pending, is even up to now, are the nominees from the NASA coalition. But you also need to be fair when you comment on it. For example, whichever way you read what the press says, because it is absolutely the prerogative and decision of NASA as to whom they want to propose. So if they come and propose a candidate from Wiper and a candidate from whatever party, as long as those names have arrived to the authority that is allowed to accept that name by Parliament, there is no way that they're going to bring a name and you expect that the Speaker will say, I will not accept this name. On behalf of who? it has been brought.
So as a party, are you allowed even as Jubilee to actually withdraw the list and present another one?
That's what I'm saying. If a list is brought from Jubilee, the Speaker of the National Assembly, being the chairperson of the commission, cannot reject or say, I don't want this name, I want the other one. That's not his job. And so when a name has come from Wiper or from whichever party, it is his duty to accept that nominee as long as they qualify as members of parliament and place their name amongst the list of members who are going to be voted for. The decision finally will lie with members of parliament because it is a voting process. And you could have your name in there expecting either to be voted in and you actually get voted out if you don't receive votes from members of parliament. And I think, as you've correctly said, these are positions that must be left out to parliamentarians to decide whom they want to represent them. That's what's happening. So on the side of NASA,
just before we move to NASA, yes. We do understand that at your last parliamentary group meeting, the nominees to the PSU were discussed. Now this is a meeting chaired or held at State House, where the party leadership, doubling up as a presidency, also has an input, and that there was an input from that section saying that a certain nominee as proposed by NASA should not be voted for. Now, do you think that kind of influence from the executive is called for when it comes to the Parliamentary Service Commission? Should it be left to individual members of Jubilee and the individual members of the parties under NASA to actually pick their own people and vote for them, because it will be a collective vote, instead of the Jubilee party actually dictating, vote for this one, do not vote for this one?
First, let's be clear that the engagement between members of parliament from a certain coalition of parties or a certain party is constitutional and lawful under the provisions of having a parliamentary group meeting.
Yes.
And so the discussions of a parliamentary group meetings are really the entire preserve of that particular party. Now, then secondly, it is speculation that has got no backup or boundary for somebody to say that their proposals not to vote for somebody or the other one. Collectively, amongst members of parliament, as members of Jubilee, you can debate because you're going to vote and ask, do we want to go and vote for Fred Indimuli? Is he capable of going to represent our interests according to what we say? And if we, either as 2 or 3 or 5 members of either Jubilee or even independently, think that you are not going to be a good representative of our interests, we have a right to air those views. Now, there was such a discussion. That proposition that there is either a directive or whatever is false. I want to tell you, and you will see what will happen. That kind of narrative can be actively propelled by NASA to cover some of the problems you see they're having. And Fred, call things the way they are. As they say, call a spade a spade. The problems within the nomination process of NASA agreeing, and not only on PSC, you've seen what has been happening. They've been shuffling from their minority leader. They remove him now. He's not Mutula Kilonzo. They come and bring another one. Now we've given it to Haneri and this kind of thing. And now again the disagreement they have, including what you're reading in the press, that Wiper Party has disagreed now with their main coalition. All those, but we are saying as a party that is their business. Okay. They can handle it internally. Okay. The only area where we feel shortchanged is because, for example, because of their wrangling, we cannot get on with the business of parliament, especially in the elections.
Let's give them a chance to explain. But Okello, how much of interference from Jubilee do you feel is actually working in this, in as far as even NASA coming up with the nominees? Because we do understand, you do interact with your members from the other side of the political divide. There's that talk about Jubilee members who have the numbers in house being directed to actually vote down one of your nominees to the PSC. How much of an interference do you think Jubilee is working into this?
Well, it is important that you brought forth this parliamentary group meeting of Jubilee in State House barely a week ago. And what was clear is that less than 50 members of parliament turned up for the meeting. And talking to Jubilee adherents, they would tell you that they are tired of Riots Act being read to them each time they appear there for a meeting. So for me, that is a step forward in terms of power separation between Parliament and the executive.
So it is happening.
And it is happening within Jubilee, and that to me is a good step. And you wonder why parliamentary group meetings would go to State House and not the party headquarters. So these are very critical issues that you have to look into. And you ask again, if they appear in State House, at whose cost? Is it the general public through their taxes, or is it out of the proceeds from the political parties fund of the register of political parties, the 0.3% of the national revenue that should go to political parties? So these are germane issues that must be properly looked into. But, you know, it was clear when they appeared in State House that certain members of PSC, as proposed by NASA, shouldn't see the light of the day. So that is interference, as you put it. But you know, let me bring it into perspective. All these that are happening are meant to, you know, shroud everything in mystery. Jubilee has had a swipe from the general public on several issues. The new one being disobedience to court orders, and that is very critical. 5 court orders in a row disobeyed by an administration is a harsh indictment on that kind of governance. So you have all these, then you have the economy that is dwindling, and then you have the swearing in ceremony of the people's president. So they had a lot of issues on their table that if you have dealt with government properly, they would tell you to bring in an issue that would take that fire out of that particular concentration. So all these that you are seeing are a charade, are decoy.
Even the divisions within NASA are a decoy?
Well, I'm talking about what is happening as regards the Parliamentary Service Commission. You remember...
Because there are disagreements also with to do the same within NASA, and as far as coming up with the nominees, WIPA seems to be reading from a different script.
This is not the first time the names are being presented to us in Parliament. The names were brought to us in December. And in unison, all members of Parliament rejected the names, both from Jubilee and from NASA coalition. The same names have once again been presented back to Parliament. Actually, Jubilee was the harshest critic of these names. And we have had, and you know, I don't want to be the devil's advocate as such, but this list may not once again see the light of the day.
Even including the Jubilee one?
Oh, well, the Jubilee is even harsher in terms of criticizing the entire list. So what I'm saying is that once they had identified, you know, a soft spot as regards dissuading the thinking pattern of the Kenyan people and taking them to PSC, NASA coalition, with WIPA as one of its affiliates, wrote a letter through the chair, Professor Kivutha Kibwana, who is the Makueni governor, and the Secretary General, Judy Sijen, wrote a letter to the Speaker of the National Assembly nominating one of its own to become a PSC member. Now, my brother, Honorable Wamatangi, knows that the standing orders are very clear as to any correspondence between political parties or coalitions and the Speaker of the National Assembly, unless it is a petition which is governed in Article 37 of the Constitution, that any public, you know, any citizen, any Kenyan citizen can present a petition to Parliament. But when it comes to parliamentary engagements, it has to be done only through the majority leader for party in government or minority leader as the party not in government. I mean, that is what the standing order states. And therefore, to subvert that process and directly engage the Speaker of the National Assembly by outsiders is in itself illegal. But as I said, the Jubilee had to find something to, remove that fire away from them. So what we are saying as NASA is that let us also respect the parliamentary business. If the names must be presented through the minority leader, then it has to take that route.
Okay.
Let us not invite outsiders then to get into this. But again, you may understand, sometimes whether Wiper would want to sanctify itself against the boycott of the 30th of January grand event at Uhuru Park, and therefore also taking that fire away from them, because they received a very serious
anyway,
from the general public.
The move by the Kalonzo Musyoka-led outfit, what you've just been describing, writing directly to the Speaker of the National Assembly and failing to go through the leader of minority, now has led the outfit is likely to isolate itself from the coalition partners, ODM and ANC and Ford Kenya. Of course, we still await to see what happens. Now, the fact that Speaker Justin Muturi accepted that letter from Wiper directly, he could not accept the new list from NASA, because now the numbers more. I think NASA gave in a list of 3 names. With that makes it 4. It will not really
I think Fred, I didn't want to butt in, but either you've been misled by my friend's presentation, or there are facts you don't have right. The facts in Parliament are such that you are represented in Parliament by the vehicle, that is the party that took you to Parliament. And I don't know whether you forgot, but may I remind you that just before the elections, the parties in NASA chose to go to the elections in their capacity as parties. And so, unlike Jubilee, which collapsed its parties and formed one party called Jubilee, and that is why you find, if you go to the roll in Parliament, my name, Wamatangi Kimani, is actually entered against my party as Jubilee. Now, in NASA, they refused to collapse their parties. And so, the members of Parliament, for example, Mheshimiwa here is registered in Parliament in the role as a member of Parliament sponsored by a party called the Orange ODM. And the members of Wiper are registered in Parliament as sponsored by Wiper. So the storyline that he tries to advance, that there is any...
So NASA as a coalition is not recognized in Parliament.
It's a bubble.
Yes.
It's a bubble.
Let me put that into perspective.
It's talk. So just a minute. You can have your shot at it. But the fact is that if you take that role and call out those members, you call those members according to... And that is what the law is. That's in the face of the law.
So Wiper was right to write indirectly to
and so Wiper is recognized by the instruments and processes of Parliament as a parliamentary party. And so is ODM, and so is ANC. And that's why you find that if ANC was to address Parliament, they will address Parliament as ANC.
Are you saying
but for purposes of political talk?
Yes. But are you saying it's wrong for the leader of minority to present a unified list representing these various parties, including ANC, Wiper, and ODM as well?
You see, what you're trying to address in this particular case is you're saying in certain cases when the process of Parliament is ongoing, the law and the requirements of standing orders should be followed, and in other cases they should not be. And that's why I would want to tell my friends here, especially when it comes to this issue, is that they probably would have had the foresight first to look at those kind of issues first when they went to the elections to make the decisions that we took sometimes ourselves.
And this discussion is going on for a bit too long. We're leaving out
in under 1 minute.
To say something.
In under 1 minute, let me clarify one thing here. That the law, the Constitution, and the standing orders that govern conduct of Parliament both recognize coalitions within a country. And therefore, NASA as a coalition is legitimate and legitimately conducting its business within Parliament. Now, my brother is saying that the law recognizes Wiper. The same law would then recognize ODM, ANC, and Ford Kenya. which are affiliate parties within ODM. But ask yourself, Honorable John Mbadi is the minority leader, but derives his authority from Orange Democratic Movement, which is actually the bigger party within NASA coalition. Ask yourself why Mbadi would present names to the Speaker of National Assembly and is not recognized, which is the biggest party. But then Wiper, using outsiders who are not even members of parliament, would present names to the Speaker, and he quickly recognizes those names and forward them to a relevant committee for debate. So why don't you think that is, you know,
wow. That's a very interesting debate, and this one will continue because it appears we don't agree even on the standing orders.
So for them, Wiper is elevated higher than ODM.
Gentlemen, I think this one we cannot conclusively.
But it's important to say, Fred, that it's really not an argument. It's a statement of fact.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you look at Wiper, they have got members of parliament elected into the house under their ticket.
Okay.
If you look at the other parties, they also have members of parliament elected.
But they could also choose to present their nominees
ticket
under the minority leader.
If you know, Fred, please, after this show, you can take the liberty to call the clerk of the National Assembly.
The two of you are members of the parliament, and
you know, I'm saying for your own fact reference in future, and then you can ask for a role of members of parliament is registered in parliament. And then in future, when you're conducting this kind of panel, you have your facts right. Because
it doesn't need any facts.
You don't need, because your colleague from parliament disagrees.
Sorry, Indimuli, as a matter of fact,
we cannot say senator is right and Okello is wrong. Let's move to another headline.
No, let me clear this.
Well, let's talk about LSK, because I don't have my facts from parliament right.
Here, because the truth of the matter, even when we so choose to discard the standing orders, let's assume that we are not going by what the standing order says as regards correspondence with the Speaker of the National Assembly, which is then by going through the the minority leader. Let's say that is not the law. Now let us come back to individual parties presenting names or dealing directly with the Speaker. You have Wiper Party with 14 members of parliament. You have ODM Party with 68 members of parliament. Why would the Speaker recognize and respect a 14-member party to the detriment of a 68?
I think the biggest question here is,
they are using Wiper.
Can all these parties, is it right for these parties to collectively issue a list or present a list, a unified list, through the leader of minority? And that's the question. Is it against the standing orders? When minority leader John Mbadi goes with a unified list, which also includes a member of Wiper Party, and presents it to parliament, is it against the standing orders? Yes or no?
You know, Fred, you're misguiding the debate.
I'm asking a question.
With due respect. Because, you know, this, as I explained earlier, this is a competition, or it's an election of a person as an individual, as a representative of other members of parliament. And so, your name, for example, my name being fronted by Jubilee, is absolutely correct. Somebody's name being fronted by Wiper is quite correct. And for those fact checks, actually, like I've just said, because I don't want to add anything else onto this, it will not make value. You can look at the IEBC list.
Senator, I think you're not getting me right, because the question is, there are two names of Wiper members, one presented by Wiper Party itself, and the second one presented by the leader of minority, because there's a member of Wiper Party